captain speaking. You are now aboard the Fantasy Voyage Express. Time to pack your bags and let us take you on a journey to victory.
Come on, y'all, let's take a ride. You ain't gotta say a word, just slide inside. It's time to take your ass on another kind of trip, cause you ain't at the top if you don't got the shit. Grab some chips and a drink to sip and close your eyes and hit that switch. We're going to a place where everybody kick it, kick it, kick it. Yeah, Blitzalytics. Ain't no friends and there ain't no simping, cause there ain't no team about to catch me tripping. Do you gotta get a stack or a third tier back? We got you covered all season to the ship from the drag. Take you to a place where you get that win, give you more than enough to defeat your friends. And if you can't take the heat, get your ass out the kitchen. We on a mission. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, slippity slide. When it's all up on the line, we can ease your mind. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, who ride? If you want to get the dub, you gotta tune in live.
You are now watching Fantasy Voyage, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here are your hosts, Cody Manning and RobRob.
And welcome back into Fantasy Voyage, presented by Blitzalytics.com. As always, I'm your host, that cartoon there on the left, RobRob. You know me. I mean, week 14, you better know me by now. Of course, my cohort here, Cody Manning, Mr. Cody Talks NFL himself. How you doing this morning, sir?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I made it into the fantasy playoffs in all three of the leagues. A little upset I dropped the opportunity to get the second seed in two of those leagues and get the bye. But you might as well get that loss out before the playoffs, right?
Right, and I always prefer to have more wins in my year. You can have the bye. I'm going to beat you anyway. That's the attitude I keep. So
there you go.
We're going to do it like we do every week here. Hit you with some news, injuries, studs and duds. We're going to get you the starts, the sits, the waiver wire targets, and, of course, the only reason you come, the streamable defenses of the week. So let's get off into this news. And Eagles fans, I know we got Superfan Jay in the chat already, so buddy, you got a new starting quarterback. Carson Wentz has played himself right out of that starting quarterback position, and Jalen Hurts is now the guy in Philly. And I know throughout the script we're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles, but first impressions, I guess, what do you think of what you saw of Hurts and what you think moving forward?
I mean, I thought I saw some, I guess you could say, promising things with his touchdown, with the way he was, his ability to, get outside the pocket and extend plays. But you also saw some of the other inaccuracies sometimes with his throws. You saw his last throw end on an interception. So it wasn't like he lit up the world, but it just felt like that whole team had a whole different type of vibe to it when he stepped on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how the team responds to him being the starter, see if maybe everything starts clicking a little bit better. But I mean, as far as fantasy football, you definitely don't want to play him this week because they're going against the Saints defense. But I would, if you got a spot on your bench and you hate your quarterback, I would not be opposed in deep leagues if you add him on your bench, and just to see what happens. Because if he comes out and has any type of success against the Saints defense, maybe you could stream him those last couple weeks. But I wouldn't be in a rush to do that.
Right, this is definitely a litmus test for him, so he's not a bank breaker for me either. But again, like Cody said, you got a spot. Maybe you just add him so somebody else can't.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. We're getting into. Cody brought it up. We were talking beforehand. It's cutthroat season. You might not need a guy, but you definitely don't want your opponent to get that guy. So that might be something to think about here too. I think it's changing of the guard in Philly. I think you'll see a lot of the Wentz throwbacks guys not do as well. I'm definitely fading Ertz. No Jeffrey for me. No Fulgham for me. It's a Jalen Reagor. It's the young blood for me that I want in Philly, if anything, at this point. So we'll move on. Denzel Mims left the team due to a family emergency. Status is in doubt. It really is going to depend on if he can get back in time for any of the testing that needs to happen to grant clearance. Really not a lot to talk about here since it's really up in the air as the moment he gets his test. So
Yeah, I put that in the rundown just because I figured just in case there's any Denzel Mims owners out there to make sure they're aware of the situation. But more likely, if you're playing a Jets wide receiver, you're probably not playing this week.
yeah,
But
if
you
you're
never
leaning
know.
on Denzel Mims, you're probably on a permanent bye for the rest of the season. Let's move into some big news here. The injury to Antonio Gibson. He's already doubtful to play with turf toe, per Ian Rappaport. And turf toe is one of those injuries I never like to hear because it just lingers and lingers. I'm old enough to remember hearing that the first time with Deion Sanders and being like, what the hell is turf toe? Guy, go play. And then Deion described what it felt like. So I'm always kind of iffy when you get that diagnosis of turf toe and how long that's actually going to linger on. What are your thoughts about Gibby here?
Oh man, it sucks. As you know, and any of the longtime listeners know, I'm a big Antonio Gibson fan. I got him in one of my money leagues. I thought I was sitting pretty at my running back position in that league, and then he went down. My dud running back, I'll talk about in the next segment. He let me down in that matchup. That's another loss I had to deal with this week. But it sucks that he's hurt because more than likely, like you said, that's something that lingers into the season. So even if he does return in the coming weeks, you could see him being more on a limited snap basis. So you don't even know if you can trust him if they do play him. I'm gonna talk about J.D. McKissick here in the waiver claims. I was surprised to see how much percentage he was available. But yeah, J.D. McKissick would be the ad if you're if he's available in your league. But no, don't do Peyton Barber, please.
I think he's available in so many leagues because people did what I did the first time I ever heard turf toe, and there's a lot of young newbies that are playing this game of fantasy football, and you see turf toe, you're like, that's nothing, guys. That is not something you want to see on an injury report. As silly as it sounds, that'll take you down, man. So, again, like Cody said, it's all about McKissick as the ad there. Let's move into, we'll do studs and duds like we do every week. Quarterback you, quarterback me, and we'll bounce back and forth for positions. So whenever you're ready, hit him with your stud and dud quarterbacks, my guy.
Yeah, so my stud dude showed out on Monday night. Josh Allen, number 2 quarterback on the week. He went 32 of 40 at 375 yards, 4 touchdowns, 6 rushes for 11 yards, finished with 30.1 points. Completely balled out this week, and as a Josh Allen owner in one of my leagues, I'm sure all owners know, they're hoping to see that that big boom performance month he had in September to close out the season and help them win a championship. And then my dud of the week, man, my dude Justin Herbert. Totally, Bill Belichick continues to rain terror on rookie quarterbacks, and that happened on Sunday. He finished as the number 32 quarterback, 26 of 53 at 209 yards, 2 interceptions, 4.36 points. Man, I wouldn't call it a letdown performance just because this is I guess his floor as a rookie going against the Bill Belichick. And this one stung because definitely I own him in one of my money leagues. I need in the league I could have had a chance to get a bye week. And that obviously him having a letdown, but I also pat myself on the back because if you guys tuned into Cody Talks NFL last Friday, I said Justin Herbert will throw 2 picks because of. So at least I got that right.
There you go. And there's 3 things you can count on, my man. That's death, taxes, and Bill Belichick shutting down rookie quarterbacks. Like, it's just written in stone. Should have seen that one coming. My stud quarterback of the week, Baker Mayfield, number 4 QB on the week, 25 of 33, 334 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also added 4 rushes for 5 yards. Finished with 28.46 points. To be frank, most of that damage dealt very early on in the game. Tennessee did end up coming back. But, I mean, if this is the kind of Baker Mayfield you get week to week, this is what makes the Browns scary. The problem is, guys, is that he doesn't line it up and give it to you week to week. So, good game this week. Don't really like the matchup, though, moving forward into this week's playoff schedule. So, I'd be a little nervous to roll out Baker this week. My dud quarterback, this is just to really hammer the point home. Carson Wentz finished as number 32 quarterback on the week. Didn't get to finish the game even. 6 of 15, 79 yards. Yeah, you're back, bud. You're back.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Go ahead.
Went 6 of 15, 79 yards, 3 rushes, 18 yards, finished with 5 points. Now, this is kind of where I wanted to talk a little bit more about Jalen Hurts specifically, Cody. I have a specific question for him. I was looking at the numbers, and Carson Wentz has been sacked 50 times this year. Hurts got sacked 3 times this week. Can Hurts survive back here either? Or is that just... I know we talked about adding him as a piece and depth, but, I mean, what happens if you're a playoff team and you're looking for a quarterback right now? Is that... I'm nervous that Hurts gets whacked just way too much, man.
Yeah, I definitely would be worried about that, especially against the Saints defense that has Cameron Jordan up front and other players like Hendrickson and Monk and Sheldon Rankins in the middle. And that offensive line, they keep on, putting out a new unit pretty much every week at this point.
It's a turnstile.
Yeah, exactly. Now Hurts, I think he's a little bit more mobile than Carson Wentz, so maybe he can, stretch out those plays like I mentioned. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how he's able to handle the constant pressure, because he didn't really have to deal with that much during his time in Alabama and Oklahoma.
Yeah, again, I'm nervous, but again, if you're reaching for a quarterback, you're probably not in the playoffs anyway. So let's move on to your running backs whenever you're ready, brother. And I know you've been waiting to talk about him.
Yeah, my stud. Finally, we're kind of seeing him emerge. Jonathan Taylor. He finished as the number 5 running back on the year. He had 13 rushes for 91 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 44 yards, 1 touchdown on 3 targets. Finished the week with 22.5 points. Just from watching him, he's seeing the field better. He's hitting holes faster. He's catching every pass that he does get targeted on. So I like him going forward. They got the Raiders this week. They got the Texans again the following week, and he might finally turn into that that RB1 that people thought he would be.
And this is what you were
Marlon Mack got hurt.
Right. This is what you were telling people. Like, I remember at the beginning of the year, you're like, temper the expectations. Come the end of the season, he could help win you a championship. But early on, and then it really came to fruition, even with that Mack injury, man. Kudos to you, sir.
Yeah. Well, let's see how it plays out over this next month. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
On the horse.
Yeah. And then my dud, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it is Miles Sanders, number 57 running back on the week. He had 10 rushes for 31 yards, 0. This is what baffled me, especially because the Packers were beating up on him. Beating up on Philadelphia. He only had 0 receptions for 1 target, 3.1 points. He had such a great matchup against that Packers rush defense. I thought he was going to play a lot better. He just definitely didn't. I do think, like you talked about with the offensive line, I think that's kind of hurting him and letting him having more of his floor performances. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about him here in a later segment as well. But yeah, he's my dud this week.
Yeah, absolute dud. My stud this week, David Montgomery, number 1 running back on the week. The touchdowns really did save him because he wasn't super efficient, having 17 rushing yards on 72 yards. He did pull in 4 receptions for 39 yards that also helped boost these points. 27.1 points on the week. Again, the guy's got all the talent in the world. It just whether Nagy wants to use him or not. So the dud of the week, we told you to sit him. Todd Gurley, 61 running back on the week, 8 rushes, 16 yards. We knew he wasn't going to get a lot of yardage. 1 reception, 4 yards, but it's the lack of touchdown. He's been touchdown dependent all year, and especially against that Saints defense, you knew he wasn't going to score a lot of points. This just hammers it home. Don't expect much from that running back position against the vaunted Saints defense. Not much else to say about the running backs this week, so whenever you're ready, man, hit me with your wide receivers.
My stud wide receiver is Devontae Adams. He finished as the number 2 wide receiver this week. 10 receptions, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns on 12 targets. Finished with 34.1 points. He just continues to be a week in and week out baller for you. So I just enjoy watching him play football. And then my dud this week is Terry McLaurin. He finished as the number 88 wide receiver. Only had 2 receptions for 14 yards, had 6 targets, only finished with 3.4 points. So you could tell that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense specifically game planned their defensive scheme around stopping him that night.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you'd have told me that Washington beat Pittsburgh, I'd assumed Terry had a better line than that, man, and he did not. So, Man, what a week. My stud wide receiver is Justin Jefferson, number 4 on the week from the position. 9 receptions on 12 targets. The guy is getting peppered. 121 yards, had a touchdown that way. Did get 1 rush for 2 yards. Finished with 27.3 points this week. The guy's number wide receiver 7 on the year. If you guys haven't kept up, he is amazing. I personally think we need to hear more of his name for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, I know it's going to go to a quarterback. It's probably Herbert's to lose. But, man, Jefferson has been impressive this year. So, Vikings fans, you got a player right there. The dud wide receiver this week for me is DJ Chark, finishing number 74 in his position. 2 receptions, 7 targets, 41 yards at 6.1 points. We've seen it week in and week out. He's getting the targets, right? So it's hard to bench that guy getting 7 to 10 to 12 targets, but he's only pulling in 2, 4, 5 catches out of those targets because they're all thrown so badly. I love this guy with a quarterback in tow, hopefully next year. But for this season, Cody, I'm going to ask you, is DJ Chark outright droppable at this point, with his remaining schedule being Tennessee, Baltimore, and Chicago in most playoff formats, and then finishing it up with Indy if you play 17 weeks? That's an insane 4-piece for him.
Well, I don't think he's droppable just because of, like you said, the targets. And last thing you want to do is you drop him, and then a wide receiver, maybe a guy that kind of needs that wide receiver 2 or 3, picks him up, and then you're facing him, and he completely balls out against you, and that would just be a stab to your stomach.
That's true.
But I think Tennessee. I mean, I think Tennessee's their secondary is not that great. I mean, we saw Baker just light him up, so I think he's actually a decent play this week. I own him in one of my leagues. I'm debating between him and some of the other guys I got off waivers who I want to play, but I'm actually kind of still leaning towards him just because the targets and Tennessee's defense isn't that great. Obviously, when they go against Chicago and definitely Baltimore, you're going to kind of think twice about playing him. But I do think he's either, if you got a better option, you can probably maybe look that other option's way. But if you don't have a better option, I would probably maybe bet on the volume at least this week and then go from there.
Absolutely. Again, next year, man, give him a quarterback next year. I think this guy's a star. It's hard to catch balls that are 3 feet away from where they're supposed to be. So whenever you're ready, Cody, we can talk about the tight end position, which I bag on every week. But this week, we actually had some choices for studs. So, Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and I got to go with the dude that absolutely balled out and was the sole reason the Raiders barely escaped the New York Jets. It's Darren Waller, number 1 tight end on the week. He had 13 receptions, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns on 17 targets. That's ridiculous for a tight end to get 17 targets. He had 45 points on the day. And if you had him, you definitely won your week. I had to go. I think I went against him in our Blitz League against Aaron, and that's the reason why I got completely smashed. And I had a pretty good week for my team. And then my dud, man, Hunter Henry, number 46 tight end. I thought he could have a potential sneaky good game against that Patriots defense. Didn't happen. Only had 1 reception for 5 yards on 2 targets, just 1.5 points. But the Chargers overall as a team were just ugly against New England.
It was super duper ugly. Hunter Henry, who is on my roster in my money league, thanks for nothing, Jack. My stud tight end, Mike Gesicki, number 4 tight end, 9 receptions, 11 targets, 88 yards and a tutty. Finished with 23.8 points and really had a fantastic grab between 2 receivers, one-handed over the middle, that makes you question why they don't get this guy more involved when he can make athletic grabs like that. But again, like Cody and I have said, the target is the king stat in fantasy tight ends this year. It really doesn't matter. As long as you can hunt targets, you're hoping for touchdowns. So Mike gave you one this week. Dud tight end, Zach Ertz, number 28 tight end, 2 receptions, 4 targets, 31 yards, 5.1 points. I said this earlier. I think Philly's going new blood. I think they're going to see what they got finishing up the season here. I fully expect it to be Dallas Goddard as the lead tight end moving forward. I see it across the board being an infusion of the new guys for Philly this season. So I'm kind of out on Ertz the rest of this year. But again, like Cody said, volume, right? 4 targets for him, 5 targets for Goddard. So it's not that it was that one-sided. I just don't like Zach Ertz moving forward. So, Cody, whenever you are ready, man, I guess it's time to talk a little waiver wire.
Yeah, and before I get into this, well, first of all, as always, these people, the players have to have more than 50% availability on rosters per Yahoo. I pull it right before the show so I can have as many up-to-date numbers. But a little thing too, obviously, like when you get to this point of the year, you definitely, hopefully, you're not in a position to have to pluck and play a guy off the waivers. But injuries happen, like with Gibson, like we talked about earlier. But don't be afraid, obviously, too, to be cutthroat, like I mentioned. The running back ad I'm going to talk about here in a couple minutes. J.D. McKissick, he was available in one of my playoff leagues. I don't necessarily need to play him, but I didn't want anybody else picking him up. And another piece of advice I would like to say too. If you do own premium running backs that are injury prone, like we just saw Josh Jacobs had a miss last week, even though Devontae Booker was quite a letdown. Dalvin Cook with Alexander Madison, any of these handcuffs, if whoever your starting running back is that you're counting on to get you to the championship, I would also consider adding their backup on your bench just in case an injury was to happen over the next few weeks. Now, let me go into this. Quarterback out of the week. I don't know if you're going to be necessarily rushing to play this guy, but if you're super desperate to play and you've been streaming all year, maybe you're in a 2 quarterback league, I would maybe look at Phillip Rivers. He's available in 60% of the leagues. This past week, he had 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception, even had a rush for 2 yards. But the reason why I added him on the list because he is going against the Raiders and they are going against the Texans again the following week. So if you're desperate for a streaming play, I think Rivers might be able to be a sneaky play over the next couple of weeks. The guy we talked about multiple times, I'll kind of run through him. J.D. McKissick, he was still available this morning in 52% of the leagues. He had 5 rushes, 8 yards. This is where you get your points, especially in PPR leagues. He had 10 receptions for 70 yards on 10 total targets. So he definitely gets the ball thrown his way. And obviously with Gibson being out, he's the back to own from Washington. And then our wide receiver ad, he was a wide receiver ad last week. He was a start for RobRob last week. And I think you can keep it going over these next couple of weeks because, like I said, the Colts are going against the Raiders and the Texans in the next 2 weeks. Is T.Y. Hilton. He's still available in 55% of the leagues. This past week, he had 8 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown on 11 total targets. I think they're starting to get him more involved in that passing attack as he got healthy this back end of the season. And if you need a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 that could potentially be a wide receiver 1, I think T.Y. Hilton is heading that way. Again, we talk about tight end is such a crapshoot. Normally, you want to bet on targets. I'm going to talk about here in the next segment. I'm not a big fan of his matchup this week, but sometimes you got to gamble on the targets, is Logan Thomas. He's available in 60% of the leagues. This past week, he had 9 receptions for 98 yards, a touchdown on 9 total targets. So those 9 targets scream definitely streamable. And on top of that, Washington, they're occasionally using him as that wildcat. So sometimes he might get some rushes. Sometimes they might let him throw the ball. So he seems to have more of a pathway to that, that elusive touchdown that me and Rob talk about what you're searching for with tight ends. And then my flex ad of the week, this is a guy I mentioned last week when we talked about the Will Fuller suspension, and he delivered right away. So if you're looking for wide receiver help, I would consider Kiki Kuti, available in 73% of the leagues. He had 8 receptions for 141 yards on 9 total targets. So he delivered right away for anybody that picked him up to replace for Will Fuller. So let me run over that again. My quarterback ad of the week is Phillip Rivers. My running back ad of the week is J.D. McKissick. Wide receiver ad of the week is T.Y. Hilton. Tight end ad of the week is Logan Thomas. And then my flex ad of the week is Kiki Kuti.
Man, that 73% for Kiki Kuti, that makes me question. I asked you beforehand, what the hell did all the Will Fuller owners do? Like, you just sitting on Will Fuller, just chilling? Like, I don't get that one, man. There's no way Kiki Kuti should be available 73% of leagues after Will Fuller's suspension. So we'll switch it up this time again, like we did last week, and I'll lead the start sits to give you a little bit of a break on the old voice there, Cody. My start of the week at quarterback is Ryan Tannehill versus the Jags, who happen to be the fourth worst to the quarterback position at 21.9 points per game. Jacksonville is number 2 in touchdowns allowed to quarterbacks, and 6 of them in a row have passed for at least 2 against the Jags. Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins each scored at least 22 fantasy points against them in back-to-back weeks. They could get shredded up here. Ryan Tannehill has the ability to go surgical. I think you see it this week from him. My sit quarterback of the week is Mr. Cameron Newton versus my Rams. Second best to the quarterback position at only 13.8 points per game. I have been calling this Rams game since the schedule dropped, Cody, that we will destroy the Patriots. It just has to happen. The Rams happen to be better than I thought we were. The Pats happen to be worse than I thought they were. The Rams have allowed 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the past 4 games to opposing quarterbacks, and they haven't allowed a rushing touchdown to a quarterback since week 5. Cam's not tossing a lot of them. He's running a lot of them, and the Rams have the ability to stop him. I think the Rams destroy the Patriots this weekend, and I'm benching Cam. So, Cody, whenever you're ready, your quarterbacks, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm actually taking my studs and duds, and I'm actually reversing it here in the start-sit section. My start of the week is Justin Herbert. I think he's set to have a bounce-back week against the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are the worst defense against quarterback positions in fantasy football this year. They're allowing 23.7 points per game. I think this sets up nicely to have him have himself to get right back on track and make that push for, like you talked about, for that Rookie of the Year award. Now, my sit, this is more of a caution because I'm definitely playing him in the league I have him in, and he's just a stud. So you definitely got to just roll him out there because we're at the point of the year when you're in the playoffs. You play your studs who got you there, and you don't overthink it. But you might want to either lower your expectations and definitely probably don't play him in DFS play. But Josh Allen against the Steelers. Pittsburgh is the best defense against the quarterbacks this year. They're only allowing 13.6 points per game. I definitely think Allen has the talent to surpass that amount, but if he has a bad game, just understand it's the defense he's going against.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh really has the ability to get in his face and rattle him, right? And that's what happens when Josh gets rattled. That's when he makes the mistakes. So I'm with you. Caution play for sure. If he didn't have that running ability, he'd be a full-blown sit for me, but he is mobile, so he's always an option. For me, let's move on to running backs, and I'm going to take your guy, JT. Give me Jonathan Taylor versus the Raiders. Fourth worst to the running back position at 22.6. The Raiders have allowed a running back to score in 3 games in a row, including 5 total touchdowns over that span. So, I see roughly the same kind of stat line JT had this week against the Raiders. Again, I think you leave him in that spot and just continue to roll him out there. My sit, I'm going to go back to it. Damian Harris versus my Rams. We are the 6th best versus the running back position at 14.9 points. I found this, and I'm just going to directly read this. The Rams have given up a touchdown in 5 straight games to the running back position, but Harris only has 2 on the year because Cam is vulturing him, and they haven't given up more than 48 yards rushing since week 6. Now, they are susceptible to the pass game in the running back, but Harris only has 4 catches on 5 targets the entire season. It just does not line up for being a good game for him. Now, we may get shredded up by somebody else, but it's not going to be him. So just like I told you with Cam Newton, I'm going to sit Damian Harris in this Rams matchup as well. Cody, whenever you're ready, I see your start here. I like it, man. I like it.
Yeah, and I've been chuckling over here just because I'm like, oh man, how mad I would love to be I don't want to see this happen, but would it be like to be a fly on the wall if your Rams are literally getting torched by Cam and Damian tonight?
I will have a meltdown.
You're like, I've cursed my team.
Yeah. I'll never speak ill.
That's why, anyways. Right. All right. I'll go ahead and get into my start, though, for running backs. Is David Montgomery against the Texans. He has definitely came along over the last couple of weeks. It seems like he's got just a tad bit more juice to him anytime I watch him play. over the last couple weeks when you watch the games. But he's also got a great matchup. Like you talked about, we talked about Jonathan Taylor just went off against this defense, but David Montgomery is going against the Texans this week, and the Texans are the second worst defense against the running back position. They're allowing 26.1 points per game, and it's kind of crazy how the season has gone for Montgomery. He went to like, should I even drop him, to now he might help people get to the championship game with the matchups Chicago has over the next couple weeks. And then my sit of the week, a guy I already talked about that was a dud, is Miles Sanders against the Saints. New Orleans is the best defense against the running back position. They're only allowing 11.8 points per game. As you and I always point out, Rob, New Orleans hasn't allowed a single player to go over 100 rushing yards in almost like 60 games, almost in like 3 years. They haven't allowed that. So, and then you're talking about a hodgepodge offensive line with a new rookie quarterback. I would just not play him, and then maybe look at their matchup next week if you're a Miles Sanders owner.
Absolutely. At this point in time, this New Orleans versus the running back, that may be the most dominant group I've seen my whole life. Like, you're talking years of not allowing one, not games, man. This is getting to be an insane streak that they've got rocking right now. So I'm with you. It's not going to be Miles Sanders that breaks that, not with the list of conditions you just mentioned. So we'll go to my wide receivers. Go ahead.
But I also do have a friendly bet. I was talking to my boy Eric, who I see is in the chat, and he thinks Sanders is going to have a good game. I think we have a friendly bet, you buy a round of drinks on like if he cracks 15 points. I think that's what we agreed to. We'll have to reconfirm that. But yeah, I'm definitely emotionally and heavily invested in the Miles Sanders day against the Saints.
We'll see how that works out next week, Eric. Tune in next week to either gloat or take your loss, my man. We'll move on to my wide receivers. And you said it earlier, if you're counting on a Jets guy, you're probably not doing good. Well, I'm going to tell you anyway to go ahead and start Jamison Crowder versus Seattle. They're the worst to the position, 29.2 points per game. He finished as the wide receiver 8 last week against the Raiders with 21.7 points. They probably will be playing from behind, but I'll be honest, it looks like it's just going Jamison's way right now. So, again, this is just kind of gut feeling. I think Jamison Crowder finishes in the, I'll say 18 to 23 range. Again, I know it's a Jet, but who knows, maybe. My sit of the week is Devontae Parker versus Kansas City. I didn't know this. The Chiefs happen to be the best, fifth best to the wide receiver position at only 20.6 points per game. I don't like the fit with Tua thus far with he and Parker. And again, quietly the last few weeks, it's a Chiefs D that's kept them in recent games. It just hasn't been explosive for the most part. Now there's been quarters and halves where that's untrue, but this Chiefs defense has really been balling out. I don't like the matchup with Devontae Parker and the relationship so far with Tua there. So Jamison's my start, Devontae is my sit, and whenever you're ready for your wide receivers, Cody.
Yeah, so my start of the week, he's definitely having a career resurgence year, and he's coming off a very good game. Is Corey Davis against the Jaguars? Now, I also put it in the rundown. Of course, you're going to play AJ Brown, so I'm not saying that's why I didn't say his name. But yeah, Jacksonville is the 5th worst defense against the wide receiver position. They're allowing 26.9 points per game. You have Tannehill as your start. They just really struggle to stop the pass. So, of course, you're playing A.J. Brown no matter the matchup, and this is a great matchup to insert Corey Davis in your lineup if you have him on your roster this week. My sit of the week it's a kind of a double one here as well. Deebo Samuel, I think, of course, that guy's might feel like, oh, he can win me the championship. I feel that. I got him on one of my rosters. I'm actually heavily debating him if I want to play him in my flex. So Deebo is more of a flex, more of a caution play. And then I wouldn't play Brandon Ayuk. Are going against the Washington football team. Washington is the 2nd best defense against the wide receiver position. They're only allowing 19.6 points per game. So again, Deebo is more of a caution play. I get it if you play him. I'm debating it myself. I lean towards maybe put him on the bench if you can afford it, and then I would just avoid Brandon Ayuk this week.
See, I get wanting to sit both of them, and given a perfect world, I would. But gut feeling tells me Ayuk has a better game. So I would like to put a drink bet with you, since you're going to be in town soon,
All right.
on Brian Ayuk outplaying Debo this week. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling I have. But I would caution you on both. I don't like either matchup. So.
Yeah, well, we can do that.
All right, there we go. I'll take Ayuk. You take Debo. At least we got something to watch for in that game then. We'll move on.
I have to play him.
Yeah, now you have to. We'll move on to my tight ends. I'm going to give you a name here we haven't talked a lot about this season. Dalton Schultz. He's playing the Bengals, which are the third worst to the tight end position at 10.5 points per game. They've let Ingram and Gesicki cook them in the last 2 weeks. Ingram for 18, Gesicki for 23. I just feel Dalton Schultz gets a touchdown here. Probably in the, let's be real, 16-point range, I think, is high output for him. But that would be tight end 3 most weeks. So give me Dalton Schultz. And I'll tell you right now, sit Darren Waller. Now, not sit, right? Because after he drops 45, you're not going to sit a guy. But you should caution yourself, temper expectations. And I think he has a rough game. He's going against the Colts, who are the best to the tight end position at 4.5 points per game. This is not the Jets, my friend. It is the direct opposite of the Jets. The Colts are the best to the tight end. The Jets are the worst. So let's not assume that this guy's going to rocket for another 20 to 45 points. I think you're looking at Darren Waller in the 10 to 12 point range for me next week. So I would start Schultz, sit Waller. Again, if you don't have the option of sitting him, at least temper your expectations. Cody, whenever you're ready, let's finish up with tight end.
Yeah, so my start tight end of the week is Hunter Henry against the Falcons. I think this whole Chargers offense is going to bounce back against Atlanta. Atlanta's also the 5th worst defense against the tight end position. They're allowing 10.2 points per game to tight ends this year. So I think this sets up nicely for him to have a pathway to finding that touchdown that we're looking for from tight ends. And then my sit, this is more of a caution play because he was my waiver ad of the week. But I know he's getting all those targets, but I would just, like you said with Darren Waller, just temper your expectations for Logan Thomas against the 49ers. San Francisco is the 2nd best defense against tight ends this year. They are allowing 4.7 points per game. Again, with these tight ends, like we talk about, you're touchdown hunting. And when I hunt for touchdowns, I look at targets. So I like that Logan Thomas, like you said, too, with Darren Waller, those guys are going to get those 8, 7+ targets a game. But sometimes you just got to have your lowered expectations. This might be one of their 4 games with their matchups.
Absolutely. And again, it's touchdown hunting anyway. So flip of the coin. Cody, Eric's in the chat. Any comments on Mike Williams versus ATO?
I think he's definitely playable. I view him as a wide receiver 3 this week, and he can put up a wide receiver 2 performance against that Atlanta defense.
Right.
If Keenan Allen wasn't in the lineup, I think he could be a wide receiver 1 this week.
With
Keenan Allen and also Hunter Henry, I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 that can put up a wide receiver 2 performance.
I am totally all about all the Chargers. If you own a Charger, roll them out, man. And here's why. The game matchup either goes the Chargers dominate because Atlanta's crap and you get points that way, or it's a shootout because Atlanta's offense decides to show up and then you still get points that way, right? So to me, the Chargers are an all-in gamble for me. Braden Leff in chat wants to know, Big Ben or Taysom Hill? Oh, what a gross question if you'd have told me we had to ask that week 14.
Hey, don't you say it's gross, but I'm in that debate right now, my big money league. I have Taysom and Big Ben, and I played Taysom the last couple of weeks. It's worked out for me. So I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, Braden. I'm debating myself. I currently have Taysom Hill in the lineup just because I think you can bet on his rushing floor. That's what he's giving people is his rushing ability. And then with Big Ben, they are going against the Bills defense, and I know the Bills defense hasn't been that great, but they are kind of coming along throughout the year. And Big Ben's arm has been hit and miss, so I'm still debating. I'm probably going to debate this through Sunday, but I lean towards Taysom Hill because of I think he offers a higher floor than Big Ben because of his rushing ability.
100% hate to say that I fucking agree with you. Again, I think Taysom Hill's that guy who 50 rushing yards feels like what I should expect from Taysom Hill, right? So there's 5 points. There's 5 points that he's got up on Big Ben already. Is because it is. I'm gonna agree Taysom Hill over Big Ben. Oh, oh gosh, 2020, what a season, guys. You guys, if you have any other questions, get them in and we'll answer them after this last segment here, Cody. But the reason everybody's here is, of course, the top 5 streamable defenses of the week, which I wish we kept copies of the script to see how many weeks this one slot has been secured by anyone playing the Jets. So I'll let you go ahead and start off whenever you're ready, bro.
Yeah, so obviously we go with the low-hanging fruit outside of the Jets bye week. But, yeah, it's the Seahawks against the Jets. If you're like me in a couple leagues where you streamed them against the Giants last week, you can just hold on to them and stream them again against the Jets. Obviously, we all know Jets are slim pickings are easy pickings when it comes to streaming a defense against. And then one thing I'll point out too is you got Jamal Adams from Seattle going against his former team, so he's going to absolutely want to have a day, want to get his hands on the ball, maybe try to find that end zone with maybe like a fumble recovery.
Over
or like
under 1.5 sacks for him, guy. I think they're just like, Jamal, go get him.
Yeah. He's going to probably set some type of sack record for safeties, I think, this year. I think he already has like the most for a DB in like 6 or 7 games because he was hurt as well. But yeah, I definitely think the Seahawks are definitely one that you definitely should have. I hope you didn't let go if you streamed them last week. My number 2, this might be. You might be wondering why, because of how crap this defense has been this year. But if there's one time to stream them, it will be this week. It's the Cowboys against the Bengals. Actually, I did get a hold of them. I saw my waiver claims this morning in one of my money leagues. Cowboys are going against the Bengals. Yes, I know the Cowboys defense has been awful, but the Bengals offense, they just placed Jonah Williams, their best offensive lineman, on IR. So his season's pretty much done. So they have no offensive line. And they got Brandon Allen at quarterback. So, I mean, if DeMarcus Lawrence cannot dominate that opportunity, then that's just on him and that defense as a whole. But I like their chances to be able to get some sacks, and then that could potentially get some turnovers for that defense. I think they're worth a gamble to stream against the Bengals offense this week. And then my number 3 is the Titans against the Jaguars. And again, another defense that just they've been hit and miss. One week they're good, next week they're bad. But again, the Jaguars have been a good high floor defense to stream against this year. Titans, they still got Jeffrey Simmons up the middle, Harold Landry on the outside, so they could still find ways to create pressure on Mike Glennon. And I think they're getting Adoree Jackson back this week. Now, he's not the best corner in the world, but that should hopefully help out their, well, as a Colts fan, I guess I shouldn't say hopefully help out their secondary, but as a streaming defense, you would hope that helps out their secondary, and maybe they can get some turnovers as well. And then my number 4 is the Saints against the Eagles. I mean, obviously we've talked about the Saints defense has been balling out over the last couple months. They're going against a rookie quarterback making his first start. So I expect him to be blitz happy, try to get pressure on him, like we were talking about in the previous segment, which can lead to those sacks. Like RobRob pointed out, the Eagles' offensive line has given up. What did you say, like 50 plus sacks already?
53 in total, 3 just last week for Hurts.
Yeah, so there's sack potential, and then like I mentioned earlier with Hurts, his last throw last week was an interception. So, he's going to have his rookie moments too. So there could be those interceptions. I could definitely see a pick 6 happening in this game. And then my number 5, honestly, this is one of those ones I thought about. You can maybe even flip them, but my number 5 is the Washington football team against the 49ers. Obviously, there's always that worry. You're going against the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, and it's kind of a revenge game for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan hates the Washington organization, and you got Trent Williams going against Washington as well. So I'm sure they're going to really want to put it to this Washington team. But I still think, that defensive front, how that defense is playing, they're going against a offense with Nick Mullins that's so hit and miss, and I think there's potential opportunity to get turnovers. This is more of a high floor defensive play by the Washington football team. But like I mentioned too, I'll also flip it on the other side. 49ers, their defense is also kind of been hit and miss this year, but if you're really desperate, I also think you can maybe do the Niners against the Washington offense, because they just lost Antonio Gibson. So if they can figure out a way like the Steelers did to slow down McLaurin, obviously they'll have to deal with Logan Thomas, but Fred Warner's there. So he's a really good, solid coverage linebacker. So, I mean, I could definitely see the 49ers defense potentially getting some sacks and turnovers in this matchup as well. I could see Javon Kinlaw eating up that middle of that Washington offensive line. That's not that great. So, yeah, I think that would be that's my close, I guess, a 5A 5B right there. So again, my top five streamable defenses: Seahawks against the Jets, Cowboys against the Bengals, Titans against the Jaguars, Saints against the Eagles, football team against the Niners. And like I just talked about, if you're desperate, I could understand going like Niners against the football team as well.
I could too, right? That feels like a very much a 13-6 game that could finish. Like that's the wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. Something cheap. So love those streamable defenses. Again, that's the only reason people come, Cody. Thank you for anchoring the show all season. It doesn't look like we've had any more questions come in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Cody, say your goodbyes. Plug what you want to plug, my man.
Yeah, so, oh man, it's all the way over there on my coffee table. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug it. You see that little book behind RobRob there on the cartoon, the Blitzalytics Prospect Encyclopedia. It's getting towards the end of the season, but I still think it can make a great gift for a young football fan for Christmas this year. It's the top 22 players on all 32 teams. There are players from the last 3 draft classes that have less than 12 starts. So these are the up and coming players that have became stars this year. You can order one for $35. It's you can go to blitzalytics.com/shop. It's on Amazon Prime. If you just want the PDF, you can also order that for $15, or just do an individual team PDF for $5. Really quick, I want to see what I see Eric got a question in. Would y'all pick Carolina versus Denver or Arizona versus the Giants as far as defenses? Ooh. I would more gamble towards Arizona against the Giants, but because Carolina's rushing defense is suspect too. So, but Drew Lock loves to turn the ball over, right?
He does, man. That feels like a quarter flip to me. Like, honestly, I think they probably finish right next to each other by the end of the week in fantasy points.
I would actually do Carolina.
Yeah, that's where I was going to say I'm leaning Carolina. I like a few more of their playmakers, right? Jeremy Chin. Give me Jeremy Chin. He's the difference maker in this for me, is I'll take Jeremy Chin versus Denver. That's really the only difference maker for me.
Yeah, and the Giants are just playing better football now,
True.
And Denver has not been playing good football. So I think I actually would go with the Panthers. But yeah, so I pushed the Blitzalytics Prospect Encyclopedia. As always, if you watch this video on YouTube, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe. We're literally 1 subscriber away from 900 subscribers. So maybe go tell a friend as well and build this with a little word-by-mouth advertising. Get more people to give us a follow on our YouTube channel. And then also too, of course, if you're ever too busy to catch the video version, you could always either come back or you can go subscribe to the Blitzalytics Podcast Network. We're on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. Just Google us and you'll find us. And you can get the audio version of the show as well. I will be back around the same time tomorrow for Cody Talks NFL. Then other than that, just want to thank everybody that tuned in live this week, and I hope you guys enjoy your week of football starting tonight with Rob's Rams versus Patriots. So.
Woot, woot. We're gonna catch this dub. Eric had a follow-up question. So pick up San Francisco is what you're saying? Absolutely, yes, sir.
I think I would.
Absolutely, pick up San Francisco. Again, I love it when Cody plugs everything because that makes my job super duper easy. So again, as I've been doing, I'll just remind you: call your friends and family, tell them you love them, be there for those that need somebody to be there. Backbone, if you will, this week. A lot of people get real down during the season. So, yes, Jay, go Rams. Yes. Superfan Jay in the chat getting them bonus points. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at RobRobGraphics. We'll be back next week. Is that right, Cody? We're gonna do one more full week, and then we're up in the air talking about maybe just doing a live show the week after.
Yeah. So how next week we should be back on our normal day on Wednesday, barring if any of these games get pushed back for any pandemic related issues. And then the following week, my plan is I will be going to visit my family for Christmas. Everything's up in the air right now, but basically me and Rob might get together and do our last show of the year, be me and him a live show where we're in the same room. We're talking.
Yeah. We'll see how that works out, but we'll get you through at least next week. So
yeah.
Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you all get the dub. Good luck. A lot of you guys are in fantasy playoffs, so hopefully you get that win, and we can help you next week even further on your trip to that championship, that Voyage we've been talking about. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Again, this has been Fantasy Voyage presented by Blitzalytics.com, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your captain speaking. You are now aboard the Fantasy Voyage Express. Time to pack your bags and let us take you on a journey to victory.
Come on, y'all, let's take a ride. You ain't gotta say a word, just slide inside. It's time to take your ass on another kind of trip, cause you ain't at the top if you don't got the ship. Grab some chips and a drink to sip and close your eyes and hit that switch. We're going to a place where everybody kick it. Yeah, Blitzalytics. Ain't no friends and there ain't no simping, cause there ain't no team about to catch me tripping. Do you gotta get a stack or a third tier back? We got you covered all season to the ship from the draft. Take you to a place where you get that win, give you more than enough to defeat your friends. And if you can't take the heat, get your ass out the kitchen. We on a mission. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slippity slide. When it's all up on the line, we can ease your mind. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, who ride? If you want to get the dub, you gotta tune in live.
You are now watching Fantasy Voyage presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here are your hosts, Cody Manning and RobRob.